Next up is Sam Murphy. If you're here in Ireland, visiting for this, you really got to see Kilgore and some of the operations here we have in Ireland where they're breeding. The nearest microprocessor you'll see to Kilgore belongs to Sam Murphy, and he's got an incredible story. His light's above of some of the best horses in the world, and he's going to tell you the story about how he was driving a horse box and had an idea and became an inventor and a real champion of using technology with horses. So Sam Murphy. Sam, stand here. This is the live stream. Okay, you just tell me and I'll click. You have to finger up. All right.
Hello, my name is Sam Murphy, and I'm just going to, unlike everybody else, just keep my notes here beside me because I'm not a professional public speaker. So, I'm the inventor of the Equilux performance system, and some people say it's a light, which it is, but you may find by the end of this that it's so much more than just a light. So, a little bit about my background. I went to the Curragh at 14 to be an apprentice jockey, and I spent 5 years, and I then done some work with some of the 3 classic winning top trainers in Ireland, and I then realised at around 20, 21 years of age that I wasn't going to be a jockey. So I went in and I done my driving licence, and I went driving, doing horse transport. I then developed my own transport business. And in that business I worked for and with some of the top trainers in the world, in Ireland. But going back to my time when I was working on horses, when I was an apprentice, and I looked after 4 horses in the yard, and 2 of the horses were on the south side of the yard and 2 of them were on the north side of the yard. And the stables that were on the north side of the yard were there was an overhang on the roof. All they had was a top door open, and there was an overhang on the roof. And even in the middle of July, at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when you were grooming over your horse, you had to have the light on. The stable was in semi-darkness on a beautiful summer's afternoon. On the other side of the yard, the more modern stable, south-facing with a window. And I noticed the difference in the horses. I noticed in the springtime that the horses in the different stables, they were weeks in advance, they were weeks ahead. The other horse were weeks behind, and it shows in their coat. The condition of the horse's coat is only a sign of what's actually going on internally within the horse. So if you listen to trainers being interviewed, and they will make statements like that the horses are not right of their coats and they might need another few weeks, etc., etc., etc. So anyway, just to put something into perspective, professional horse racing and breeding is less than 300 years old. The UK Jockey Club was established in 1750 and the General Stud Book in 1790. But the evolution of the horse has occurred over 55 million years. So it's a very short period of time that we have bred and raced horses professionally. So when I started to do my investigations and study, and all self-taught, thanks to Google, and I realized that how do horses winter? How do they do over the winter? And you'll hear trainers say things like, she's done well over the winter, that type of thing. But I looked at what is winter? What is winter to a horse? Winter to a horse is short day, and summer to a horse is long day. And spring and autumn, practically, in our conception of spring, autumn, summer, winter, but the horse has 2 seasons. Long day when he receives more light than dark, short day when he receives more dark than light, and temperature is very secondary. And if you look at horses that are bred and raced in Italy, for example, in Milan, and you compare them to the south of France, you've got in Milan in the winter minus 10, 12 degrees, in the south of France plus 8, 10, 12 degrees. So a dramatic difference in temperature, but the same length of day. The horses in Milan or in the south of France have no advantage over the horses in northern Italy. If you go to the United States, it's cold and it snows in Kentucky. Why are the horses bred in Kentucky? Well, obviously there's reasons, the bluegrass, etc., nutrition, etc. But there are also Florida bred horses, California bred horses, etc., New York bred horses. And California bred horses or Florida bred horses, they have no advantage over New York or over Kentucky bred horses. Otherwise, Kentucky would be in California. You know, the horses would be in California. So length of day is very, very important cue in the circadian rhythm of a horse. Now, if you look, no matter where you are in the world, there was experiments done with bringing horses to Dubai, wintering horses in Dubai, and it was going to do wonders for them. Yes, okay, so the horses in Dubai would have clearer skies. So they would have more visible blue light, because the cloudy conditions filters the blue light, which is beneficial to horses. So okay, they would have more exposure to blue light. But as you can see from this chart, that even in Dubai, in winter, they get back to 10 hours, 35 minutes of daylight. So it's still winter, it's short day. Okay, so the horse is still receiving more dark than light. And no matter where you go in the world, it's the same situation. Only in Ireland and the UK, Europe, etc., we go back further, so our short day is shorter, and we go forward more. So we go to 16 hours of light in the summertime, where, for example, the longest day of the year in Kentucky is 14 hours 45 minutes, and in Dubai 13 hours and 45 minutes, so that they don't have the extreme swing that we have, but they still have short day. So now, the next thing I looked at was the quality of light, and we know that blue light is beneficial. We're controlling the hormones, serotonin and melatonin, and we know for a fact that blue wavelength light suppresses melatonin. So that's why people say you shouldn't watch TV or look at your laptop, your phone at night time if you want to try to sleep, because the blue light suppresses melatonin. So now, something very interesting, this photograph. These are photographs taken by a professional photographer. And the top one with the yellow is on the left-hand side of the yard, and the right-hand side of the yard is my lighting system. And what you will see is here, you would think the stables were painted yellow. They're not. In fact, they're painted white, the same as the other side of the yard. You would also think that the lights were actually yellow lights, yellow bulbs, and they're not. What is happening is that when you are standing looking at a light, you cannot see the yellow. When you take a photograph, if you want to see how bad your light is or how yellow your light is, take a photograph and look at the photograph, because the human eye filters yellow. And the reason the human eye filters yellow is, as I explained to you, for us to sleep we need to produce melatonin. And we didn't always have gas heating and oil heating. We evolved to sleep by a fire. So for us to be able to produce melatonin to sleep, and sleep by a fire, our system learned to filter yellow. So yellow-orange wavelength of light does not affect us as much. We filter it. We don't see it. Now, if you look on the photograph on the right-hand side, two things here. The first is that the back row of lights is my light, and it was installed into a barn where the guy already had daylights. He had what's sold and marketed as daylights by one of the world's leading manufacturers. But still, if you compare it to our light, there's a lot of yellow, because humans don't find the high blue light comfortable. That's why you will see people on ski holidays wearing sunglasses. We just don't find it comfortable. For us to be comfortable in a working environment, we can pull up with strong light, in an operating theatre, in a laboratory when we need light to work. But when we want to have, like on a normal day, relax or sit or whatever, we prefer dimmer lights. That's why we have dim lights in our living rooms, in restaurants and bars. We prefer to have dimmer light, so it's just not suitable. But interestingly, even on the photograph, the bottom one of my lights, you can see that the lights outside the stables, the outdoor light, yellow in comparison to the full spectrum light. So the other situation with these lights, why we installed my lights and left the existing lights in, was to show that my light can be installed without interfering with the existing lights. Therefore, in a rented premises, my system can be installed and removed temporarily. So what we're looking at here is natural daylight, and natural daylight peaks in the blue, in the wavelength around 450, 60 nanometers. On the top right hand side you have incandescent or ordinary old-fashioned light bulbs, and what you will see is that's why they peak in the yellow red, which makes orange. So that's why you see the yellowy orangey colour. They have blue, but they have very little blue. On the bottom right hand side is fluorescent lighting, which is actually the worst lighting you can have for horses. It practically has no blue. So you will be better off for a horse to have an ordinary light bulb than a fluorescent tube, even though you think it provides a lot more light. What you can see in the bottom left is our light. And our light peaks at the exact peak of natural daylight, full spectrum light minus the UV. So the quality of light is one of our elements, and the intensity of light. So now what we're looking at doing with the horses is, in the calendar year of a horse, there are only ever 2 days the same. It's called equinox. March 20th approximately and September 20th, there is equal day, equal light. So the horse will receive 12 hours light and 12 hours dark on those 2 days. From March to June, the days are getting longer by approximately average of 3 minutes a day. From June, they're starting to get shorter, right back down until December. So if you consider this, if you take melatonin is produced in the dark, so how much melatonin is the horse producing? What's the duration of melatonin? Well, in December, we have 8 hours of light and we have 16 hours of dark. So the horse is double the dose of melatonin. In March, he has an equal dose of serotonin and melatonin. And then as every day passes, he's getting 3 minutes more, 3 minutes less melatonin. So basically, he has 6 months of long day, 6 months of short day. They're his 2 seasons. They're the horse's 2 seasons. What we do is we take equinox back 42 days, 6 weeks. And we begin earlier. We begin the springtime earlier. So by the time we get going, we reach the equinox in March way earlier. We reach long summer's day way earlier. And then when we get to the longest day of the year, which is June 22nd, we stop. And we stop and we wait 6 weeks. And the natural days start getting shorter. And the way our program works is, we have a maximum day of 10 p.m. And after June, nature will start to shorten the day. We'll wait for 6 weeks and we'll give nature a head start of 42 days. So the days are getting shorter. By 42 days later, we start to get shorter. So we now deduct 3 minutes a day, which means that we have reached March 22nd, 6 weeks early, and we have reached September 22nd, 6 weeks late. The result is that we have 3 quarters of the year of long day and 1 quarter of the year short day. So we have adjusted the horse's seasons, and we have just adjusted the circadian rhythm. And this is well known in fertility and breeding. This is what people do, put horses on the long day for breeding, to breed earlier foals. So to cycle a mare when she wouldn't normally be fertile. So I looked at, we know all this about fertility, it's not anything new, it's been around since the 1940s. If you want to breed an early foal, you need to put light to the mare to make her cycle. So what I looked at was, is the male horse a seasonal breeder also? If the mare is a seasonal breeder, why would it not make sense that the male was a seasonal breeder? So I looked into this, and I watched a program on TV, and then I read some research that was done. And in some of the research that was done, when extended light was put to male horses, testosterone was increased. So basically the light affected the mare's prolactin, progesterone, all the female fertility hormones. It also affected the male fertility hormone, which is testosterone. So now I would say what is a very naughty word in the bloodstock racing industry, anabolic steroid. If you say anabolic steroid, everybody runs because it's illegal. You cannot administer an anabolic steroid to a horse. But you can have a horse produce testosterone naturally, and testosterone enhances muscle. So you can increase muscle in a horse. You can also get earlier shedding of the coat. You can hold the coats for longer. You can alter the horse's BMI, which we proved in research, which I'll show you now in a second. Yeah. Oh, back. So, the hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, would be immediate response hormones. They can respond in fractions of a second. We just go to the next one, David, please. Yeah. Melatonin is derived from serotonin, and it occurs gradually. It's a gradual response hormone. It doesn't respond immediately. So melatonin is produced beginning at dusk. As the light drops, the melatonin rises, and the same thing happens in the morning time. As the light comes, the melatonin will drop. So basically our system does not switch on and switch off. It tries to provide a gradual rise and gradual fall of melatonin, like they would in the natural environment. So our lights dim up over 20 minutes in the morning gradually, and dim down over 30 minutes in the evening gradually, which rises and drops the melatonin naturally. So what you see in front of you now on this chart is we don't want the horse to be exposed to any light other than the light that we provide, so the timed rhythm. So the days are getting longer, or the days are staying still, or the days are coming back. So the horse knows he's going forward or he's coming back in the year. It's an annual rhythm. But we sometimes need to interact with the horses outside of ours. We need to maybe put a rug on or check their feed, or we need to interact with them, check they're okay. So red light doesn't affect the secretion of melatonin. So we're back to this chart again. Blue light suppresses melatonin. So we went into the red, and we went down to the very, very bottom of the red, down near 700 nanometers. As far away from the blue as we can possibly get. And then can you go back 2 steps, David, please? No. So what we done was we got some horses under the dark, and we got some horses under the red light in 700 nanometers, and we took bloods. And what we showed was that this red light did not suppress. Same as dark. Actually, if you look at the chart, you will actually say it's probably better than dark. So the red light is not affecting the production of melatonin. Therefore, what we now have is we have a wavelength of light and an intensity of light that is dark to the horse's system. We can now interact with the horses, go in, bandage, rug, do whatever we want, and we can still give the horse 12, 13, 14 hours of darkness that we think that he should have. Forward to now. So basically there, next. So now what you see here basically is for the UK, 12 hours and 57 seconds. On the 18th of March is when the horse will receive equal day and night and will then start going forward. We have got there 6 weeks early, and there are some benefits to that, to bringing the horses forward besides fertility. So what you see here is an experiment. 58 2-year-olds in training, BreezeUp horses that are going to breeze, say, tomorrow. Equal number of colts and fillies, all from the same yard. We started off with 60, and one unfortunately got very sick, had to be pulled from the experiment. We pulled another from the control group at random, and we finished up with 29 in each group, the same number of colts and fillies. They're in the same yard, trained by the same person. They have the same feed, they have the same bedding, they have the same exercise. There's no difference in anything the horses are doing. There's no difference in the hay they're eating. There's absolutely no difference. The only difference is one group, the lights are turned on manually at feed time in the morning, 6 a.m. They're turned off manually at 5:30 p.m. when the horses are fed. The other horses, 29 horses, are on our lighting system. So they have the intensity, they have the quality, and they have the duration of light of 14 hours. And the difference in the horses can be seen. And if you see, so basically what you will see is there are 3-week intervals from Christmas. So 3 weeks intervals. If you see from week 9 to week 15, on the right hand side, the fat-free mass, the muscle basically, the horses are cantering, they're doing light exercise from Christmas, they're gradually getting fitter, they're losing weight because they're losing fat, they're gaining muscle, they start to level out. And then it's now week 9 and they're getting near to ready for the sales. They need to start getting some fast work. So now we're going to intensify the work and we're going to push the button. We've got to push the horses so that their exercise is being extended. The group, the control group, week 9 to week 12. What happened there? Huh? No, that's gone.
Oh, that's just that. No, it's still there. Oh, I can. Yeah.
All right, okay.
It'll just be a second. Keep going.
Okay. So week 9 to week 12, the control group dropped away, and then they gradually recovered. So by week 15, which is now April, they're back to where they were 6 weeks ago. So they've had a 6-week period at a critical time in horse racing, which would be the start of the flat season, when they had made no progress. They're just the same as they were 6 weeks ago, weight-wise and condition-wise. The horses with the light, bearing in mind no other difference, only the quality and the duration of light, have continued on an upward spiral, and they have continued to improve. And this experiment has been done previously in Japan by the JRA, Japan Race Association, and in that experiment bloods were taken and elevated testosterone was shown. The horse's optimal growth, the same as optimal fertility, is linked to the perception of nutrition. So the horse does not know there's a truckload of feed coming. He doesn't know the tack room with the feed house is full of feed. The horse has a perception of when they can grow, when they can afford to grow, when they have nutrition. The mare has a perception when she can be pregnant, when she has the resources to invest in her foal, when she has the ability to lactate, etc. So what we see here, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but to just explain that those horses moving forward, from the group of 60 horses, 30 in each group, the first 6 runners from that group came from the light group. The first 6 runners. Of those 6 runners, there was 5 winners first time out and a second first time out. So the first 6 runners, 5 winners and a second. From that group of 30 with the lights, 3 of those horses went to Royal Ascot. Now they didn't do any good at Royal Ascot. No excuses, okay. But to get 3 horses from a group of 30 to Royal Ascot, the statistics are pretty phenomenal just to get there. 3 horses from a group of 30. From thousands of horses, it's a very small fraction that get to Royal Ascot. So what you will see there is what I believe. I believe we have advanced maturity. I believe we have begun maturity earlier. Now I don't have millions to do research. I don't have hundreds of horses to experiment on. But we're all familiar with the handicap system. And the handicap system is a horse runs 3 times in level weight races, maidens, and they're then given a rating. And the handicap system, the rating is pounds. If a horse is rated 90, a horse is rated 92, he's supposedly 2 pounds better. A horse rated 88 is 2 pounds worse. So the handicap is weight, ability expressed in pounds. There's another handicap that was developed over 100 years ago and still stands almost unchanged to this day, It was developed by a man called Admiral Rouse, and he developed the weight for age scale. And the weight for age scale is immaturity expressed in pounds. So they see a mature horse as a 4-year-old, and then a 4-year-old has to give a weight allowance to a 3-year-old, to in turn would give a weight allowance to a 2-year-old. And what you will see on this scale is that when the first 2-year-olds races start in March, the 2-year-olds in general, they're all individuals, but in general, are deemed to be 47 pounds below maturity, according to weight for age scale. But that scale changes every 2 weeks. And every 2 weeks, the 2-year-olds in general are improving by 3 pounds a fortnight. So every 2 weeks. So on the 30th of March, the 2-year-old will receive 47 pounds from a 4-year-old, but 2 weeks later, 44 pounds. So that level of maturity, the level of growth of the horse is known. It's set in stone. And I believe we're just getting in advance of that, and we're giving the horse marginal gains, marginal improvements, and he's just ahead of the curve that we've triggered maturity a little bit earlier. I don't think it makes a bad horse good. I just think it's an edge, it's an advantage, but we're just getting ahead of the curve. So, another big benefit of the lights for fillies. We know all this. This is standard. In fertility, this is standard. But what about horse in training? So what you'll see is the spring transition period, right? So this is when the horse is coming from their fertility shutdown in the winter, when high levels of melatonin have shut down fertility. The horse, to come back to her fertile time, needs to go through a transition period. The transition period will be 60 to 90 days. During the transition period, it is characterized by irregular estrus cycles, prolonged heat cycles, split head periods, and other irregularities. In other words, the fillies are very difficult to train when they're coming through this transition period. Some of them start earlier, some of them start a bit later. They don't all start the same day. So when the flat season starts in April, a lot of the horses are still in this transition period. And even when we get up as far as May, when the guineas and the big races are starting, some of them are still in that transition period, and they're difficult to train. So one of the world's leading trainers explained this to me, and I went and I met with his vet, and I said that if he put his fillies on my system, that they would start the transition period earlier, and they would exit it earlier, and then they would be in a full normal cycle. And then he could regulate them, and he would know when they're in heat, and know when they're due out, etc. And he could manage them a little bit better. And it worked. It done what it was supposed to do. So the advantages of placing fillies in training under lights is also a viable prospect. So when I developed my light, my prototype light, it took me 4 years. And I suppose I should say thank you to McDonald's. Because when I came with my idea, I had to go back on the road driving to try to earn a living while I was trying to get this going. I had no investor, I had nobody to support me, and I was driving a horse box doing horse transport, what I had done for 22 years previously. So I'm driving a horse box all over the continent. I'm away 22 days of the month, and I'm stopping in motorway services, getting Wi-Fi in McDonald's, trying to develop my system, trying to design, studying and what have you. And I done it all remotely. And I developed a prototype from selling my car basically, and I developed a prototype, and then I eventually sold my house and moved in with my mother and got my business up and running. And it took me, as you can see from this testimonial, 2014, I started in 2012. So this trainer, Mark Johnson, is a leading UK trainer, but he's also a qualified vet. And he said something, as you can see there, about ringworm. And this really interested me, like why would light, affect ringworm? Now in this testimonial which he sent to me, is not very strong, but he put a stronger statement on his own website where he says, we appear to have eliminated ringworm since using the light system. So I think he just didn't want to go as strong just in case. didn't want to put. So anyway, this inspired me to go to try this situation out, to have some stables analysed. So what you will see here is the 29 stables with the 2-year-olds in training, the 29 stables without the light versus the 29 stables with the light. Same bedding, everything the same people going in and out, no difference. The only difference is the intensity, the quality and the duration of light. But it's a high level of blue light. And not only is the fungus dramatically reduced, which we expected, but the pleasant surprise was that the bacteria was also reduced. So we now have a lighting system that has benefits of antifungal, antibacterial, which came as a pleasant surprise, I would have to say. So then, after doing this, the bad news came when another client called me to tell me that he had ringworm in the yard. He had got ringworm. So I was a little bit disappointed until some weeks later that I discovered that he told me the 4 horses in the yard of over 100 horses that broke out in ringworm all came from the same place, and they broke out in ringworm shortly after arrival. So it turned out that these horses were pre-trained on the stud farm where they were born, and the first time they left the stud farm was to come into training. So I then went and I got advice, and I was told that ringworm is something that's in, like the human herpes virus. Most people are carrying it, and when your immune system goes down, it manifests. Ringworm is something similar. It's within the horses. The stress of moving, being transported, coming into training, hurt their immune system, and the ringworm came out. The good news is that it didn't spread to any other horse in the yard. Even though they're housed in the same barns, the ringworm didn't spread beyond the 4 horses who brought it there. So that was a very, very pleasant surprise to receive. So what you will see here is a very famous stallion called Acclamation. It's a very, very good stallion, one of the leading stallions in Ireland. At this moment in time, we have over 100 of the top stallions in the world using our system. Again, because of the increase in testosterone and the fact that we're breeding early and they're using light to cycle their mares traditionally, and it has now been suggested that they also enhance the stallion's fertility and increases testosterone levels. And the results then you can see his coat. This photograph was taken on the 15th of January. The horse looks like it's the middle of July. He just looks absolutely incredible. And as I say, the coat is an outward sign of everything is right inside. So here we have, again, a filly in training, the 7th of December, and she's still unclipped. Most of the horses under my system, they don't get clipped. They haven't been clipped. So, I mean, the value of just saving the time and the effort and the money, just clipping the horses. We've had horses won races in December unclipped. So this was just an article that appeared thanks to Emma Berry in the TDN, where she went, this was unsolicited by me, I had nothing to do with it. Somebody called me and says, have you seen what Emma Berry wrote in the TDN? And she compared Carl Burke's horses on January 17th to horses that had wintered in Dubai, that they looked that well, you know. And then I'm going to talk about marginal gains. And this is a man, self-made, started off with a couple of horses, now one of Ireland's leading trainers, and he believes very strongly in marginal gains. He believes very strongly in leaving no stone unturned. Basically, he uses my system. He was, along with Mark Johnson in the UK and Michael Halford in Ireland, were the first 2 people to ever use my system when it was only a prototype, and they believed in me every step of the way, and Michael Halford in particular helped me so much. I couldn't have done it without him. At the end of the time with the prototype, he was so impressed, he took out the prototype when I got my proper system. The prototype could have still worked. He took it out and he put the proper system into all of his stables. So, what we have in horse racing is a very unusual situation where we use distance instead of time. In athletics, in swimming, in cycling, in Formula 1, It's all about time. The time. You're beating a second, a fraction of a second, hundredths of a second, whatever. In racing, you're beating a short head, a neck, a length, half a length. And people can't really relate that to real time. But a horse who's beaten short head over a mile of distance is beaten by 1/50th or 2% of a second, which is incredible. That's how fine the margins are, okay? Most people then say, oh, we were just beaten a short head. We were very unlucky. Bad luck. But I think a smart trainer would say, how can I improve by 3% of a second? What can I do? But this is just to say that marginal gains count, and they count a lot, because of the way the system works. There is, as I explained to you, in the pounds, in the weights, the black type system, the pattern system, and Jay will know all about this. A horse that's rated 100, the entire industry, the stallions, the value of horses, the horses that make 5 million, 10 million, 2 million, it's all on their rating. It's all by what they're rated. And we have a system of handicaps, and then we have a system of black type. And in each of the sections of the black type, we have listed races, and then we have Group 3, Group 2, and the premier races are the Group 1s, the Derby, the Guineas, the Oaks, the Prix de l'Arc, the Breeders' Cup, all the major, the Olympics of our sport are the Group 1s. But there's not much of a difference. That people would not believe how little of a difference there is. A horse that's rated 100 is a handicapper. A pretty good handicapper, but a handicapper all the less. A horse rated 105 is into listed class. A horse rated 110, Group 3, 115, Group 2, 120 plus, Group 1. So there's not that huge difference. There's so many variables, the ground, did the horse get left in the gates, did the track suit him, was he happy going left-handed, did the jockey give him a good ride? So many variables that luck can then also come into play. If you have a horse rated 110 and you can just get him into the next class, so you can get a Group 3 horse, Group 2 placed, or you can get a listed filly, Group 3 placed, or going back to the handicapper, you can get a decent handicapper listed place. You're earning black type. That black type values your horse to sell. It also values his sisters, his brothers, his mother, his father, etc., etc., etc. Black type is the be-all and the end-all. So my system is not going to take a horse from 75 to 120, but it might take a horse from 115 to 118. It might take a horse from 121 to 123. So we have over 100 stallions all over the world, including Australia and America. But to date, 81 Group 1 winners, which is a phenomenal amount of Group 1 winners. 81 Group 1 winners in 7 different countries in the world have been trained on the system. 17 sales hoppers sold for up to 1.7 million have been sales prepped on the system. So it appears to be working, and unlike the testimonials for the botanical thing, I wish I could get the testimonials, but it appears that people who buy a few of my lights come back and buy more, and then they come back and buy more, and then they put all the horses on my system. Well, I've got some of the world's top people using my system, and not one of them will endorse it. Not one of them. They won't talk about it, they won't endorse it, they won't allow me to use their statistics. Jay is nodding. And not only that, but one man went so far as to deny he used it. So I think if you give somebody a benefit of health, or saving labor, or saving time, or many other things like, you know, supplements that might help, or something that might help a sick horse, etc., they will be happy to talk about it. If you give somebody performance enhancement, they don't want to talk about it, but they don't want to tell their competitors about it. So therefore, we just keep plugging along, and the word gets out, word by mouth. So at the moment, over 2,500 horses worldwide use the system, but I'm still a one-man band. Me, and a van, and a mobile phone. and I do everything from answering the phone to delivering the lights to that's it. I'm just on my own. So probably interested now to find somebody that would be interested in it. So what I would say to you is, in Formula One, if you come up with an aerodynamic paint or some new windscreen or bumper or wing mirrors that were aerodynamic that would save something, and the hardest part of anybody here trying to sell technology to horse people is the fact that they're just so old-fashioned and set in their ways. If I went to Ferrari tomorrow and told them I had invented something that would cut 2% of a second off a circuit of the racetrack, they would probably be landing a helicopter right here now to kidnap me or to give me 10 million. But a lot of the racing people, they don't see marginal gains bar the top few, and that's probably why they're in the top. So basically, the cost of our system, it runs 24 hours a day. It dims up in the morning, it dims down in the evening, it stays on longer every day, and then it stays on less every day. But it runs 24 hours a day, and we have used sensors to dim the light when natural light comes in. The more natural light you have coming into the stable, the less electricity you will use for the light. But in any event, the light can't use any more than 40 cents a week in electricity on 24 hours a day for 40 cents a week. And the cost of the system is from €595 with a 5-year warranty. So basically, in the UK, it's £100 a year, which is the cost of a decent rug, and 40 pence a week to run it. So that's basically, that's it. No, yep, finished now. That's it. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Sam? Go on, yeah. Okay.
I'll ask you, why does it provide 5 times light for 50% of it? It's more, it's not the full spectrum, is it?
No. Five times the light, as in, say, in watts. In watts. Right. It would provide the equivalent light of a 200 watt bulb. You would need 2 100 watt bulbs to provide the equivalent light of this. But this is 50 watts. And because we use dimming sensors to dim it down when natural light is available, it can dim right down by 90% during the daytime. So it uses 50 watts on maximum, but the average is about 12 to 15 watts. So you would get 5 times the light of the same wattage for half the cost. It would cost 40 cents a week to run.
The figures you gave about 100 a year over the...
Yeah, it will, in the UK it's available in finance, and in Ireland I can't get anybody to finance it, but in the UK it's available in finance. It costs less than £10 a month on finance over 5 years. If you wanted to buy it in the UK, it would cost you £500, and it has a 5-year warranty. It has up to a 10 or 12 year lifespan, but it has a 5-year warranty. So even as a capital investment, it would cost £100 a year over 5 years. Well, the electricity costs are like 40p maximum in the winter, spring and autumn probably 30, and in the summertime as low as 20p a week. So it's almost non-existent. Yeah, but you're saving the clipping costs.
No, that's what I mean. You're saving the clipping costs.
And also ringworm in the yard doesn't come into the yard on Monday, infect every horse in the yard, and leave on Friday. Ringworm takes its toll through the yard. It goes through the yard over time. So from the time you spot the first horse breaking out with a ringworm, you say, oh, we've got a horse with ringworm. And you hope that there hasn't been, and the next thing, 3 days later, another one, 3 days later, another one. And it takes maybe 6 weeks. By the time some of the horses you have cured the ringworm, some of them are still breaking out. And ringworm affects horses, it affects them, it affects their immune system is down, it takes them a long time to recover. And you can't go racing if you have ringworm. You need a vet cert that it's dead, so it's breaking out again. You get a vet cert for one horse, and now another one is breaking out. So to be able to avoid ringworm for a racing trainer during the racing season would be a massive thing. It would be worth that for that alone.
Have you come across any stables with strangled?
No.
Oh, okay. Because that's still to be tested.
No, we don't know. What I'm told by the vets is that if you reduce bacteria in a stable, the horses are less likely to get sick and will recover quicker. They're less likely to get infected, and if they do get infected, they'll recover quicker. But I mean, it's hard to prove everything. You know, I mean, you can overprove things too. You know, I mean, anecdotally, it seems to work. People are happy with it. The horses seem to perform on it. What do you need to prove for £2 a week? You know.
Any more questions?
Hi, your system, do you only use it in stables or have you tried outdoor and indoor arenas? Would they be strong enough for, let's say, your outdoor arena?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any advantage in an outdoor arena, because what the idea is actually, the contradiction is that what we're doing is we have to provide light to control dark, but what we're actually doing is the whole idea of the system is to control the period of dark. So you're controlling melatonin. And the only way to control dark is to provide light when you don't want dark. So if you were lighting an arena with this type of light, there wouldn't be any advantage with a horse in there exercising for a half an hour or an hour. It's a
like your riding schools where you would have horses for a few hours during the day.
No, it would be actually the idea of the system is to adjust the annual cycle, so to breed earlier and to have the horses more muscle coming to the season and to keep them going longer in the season, because we have a lot of big races in the autumn in Europe. So we're targeting, say, in October you have the Prix de l'Arc in Paris, and then you have the Breeders' Cup in America, and then you have the big Hong Kong races. So horses are going into the winter. We're prolonging that. We're delaying that. So I can't see it would be any advantage to an arena. No. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Do you find it harder to control the horses that are stable facing out with barns that are open on the outside, opposed to barns that are walled?
My one is gone. No, the horses we know, they have 356 degrees of vision.
Yes.
And the question that I get asked all the time is, what if a horse has his head out over the door? The light is on in the stable, but my horse has his head out over the door. And what we done was we got our lux meter and we held the lux meter outside the door, and the light is coming. So the light is coming, right? So the horse doesn't have to run around and see it. The light, they have rear vision.
Right.
So the horse is getting the light with his head out over the door.
Right. I understand what you're saying. My question though is, when the horse is facing out, is the wall it's facing, is it open? There's some barns at racetracks that is open to the sunlight, where other barns, that's the back of the stall, and the horses face each other on the inside.
Yes, we have the same type barns here with a laneway down the middle.
Yes.
Okay, so each stable has a light, both sides. Okay. And in the case of a single stable, your horse has got a light, but if he puts his head out the door, he will still get the light from behind, you know.
Yes.
So.
Thank you.
Right, Sam, just one thing for me, I mean, to inspire people who have had careers in the racing industry who've got ideas, what would your words of encouragement be? It's a roller coaster ride.
I would say never give up if you have a dream and you believe in yourself and you believe in your product. I mean, I went to one trainer, and he wasn't that interested, you know, and I actually just on the spur of the moment said to him, sure, look, I said, you take my system and you try it. And you try it for 3 months. And if you're not happy, I'll refund your money and I'll take it back. And he says, wow, he says, you're confident. And I just said, yes. And he took it, you know. But sometimes it's very difficult. And what I was also say is to people, I would appeal here on behalf of anybody who innovates or who invents something, and I will make this appeal. When you're going to buy something, you know, you wouldn't buy, most people anyway, you wouldn't buy stolen goods. you know, most of us wouldn't buy counterfeit goods. So maybe we also should consider not to buy copies of other people's work. Because I think there's nothing in the world that anybody has ever put blood, sweat and tears into 5 years of their life, and as soon as you get a bit of success, you're just copied. And people seem to have no scruples with buying copies, you know. So the one thing I would like to say to people is, well, okay, if you have a budget, you're on a budget, you can save a few quid and you can buy something cheaper. That's understandable. But if you can buy an original product from the original inventor, well, you should consider that at least, because some people have put years into their product.
Mind you, if anyone's making a copy in the HorseTech Conference, please do.
I'd love the rest.
Yeah.
I'd rather sit in the audience.
But I would say never give up on him, because you get so many downs, you get a lot more downs than ups, and like I get a big kick every time a horse trains, every time a horse on my system wins a big race. I mean, I get a buzz out of it. Like, I get probably more buzz than the trainer gets out of, oh wow, he was trained in my system, you know. And every time we get any result with, I get a bit of pride out of the achievement, you know. But I would say that there has been a lot of lows too, and a lot of times when I wanted to give up and I just had to gather myself and keep going. But it's not easy to bring an idea to the market. For an ordinary person working in a stable to come with an idea and to take that idea and bring it forward and finish up with a product, it's just not as simple as it sounds. And there's plenty of people willing to knock you and put you down, so don't put yourself down. You've got enough people to do that for you. Don't put yourself down. If you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing and you believe something will work, you just work hard at it and it will eventually it will come right. So,
Sam, I know you've got some other great ideas, and I know there's people here in the room and there's people on the live stream that can support you with those ideas and helping them commercialise them. So,
well, I've got two other inventions at the moment, and they're in the finished prototype stage, and hopefully in the near future they'll be launched. So we'll see how that goes.
Just two.
Only two.
Don't you retire.
No.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Round of applause, please.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.